And welcome to this week's Property Matters on Dublin South FM, the show that brings global trends to an Irish audience. You can contact us on Twitter at iPropertyRadio or by email at hello@iPropertyRadio.com. Your host today is myself, Carol Tallon. We're not in studio today like most of the planet. Property Matters is in containment due to coronavirus or COVID-19. And we are, of course, adhering to the strictest social distancing guidelines. So I'm delighted to be joined today by phone with the wonderful Antony Slumbers. Anthony's a guest of the show and, of course, a prop tech guru that most of our listeners would be familiar with. Anthony, you're very welcome.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here. You see, technology does work.
Technology works. We've been saying it for quite a while. Anthony,
exactly.
Tell me, before we get started, talking about property and prop tech, how are things where you are right now?
Oh, what is it? I'm not quite sure the words, actually. I mean, it's all slightly discombobulating would be probably the best word. I mean, everything's shut. No one's really moving anywhere. It's quite interesting, actually. My wife works for an estate agent, and they've shut today, and it looks like the other agents are all shutting today, or at least moving home.
Anthony, when you say shutting, are they like closing for business, or are they sending staff home but working remotely?
No, sending staff home.
Okay.
Sending staff home. I think it's, within agencies, it's all a bit of an experiment. There's lots of people going, well, I've no idea whether this is going to work. But, my wife and I were talking about this yesterday. And of course, everything she uses is online, doesn't really create a lot of paper. Not that many people come into the agency, the physical agency. So touch wood. I mean, we have no idea what's going to happen. I mean, funny enough, last week, she was selling her house and she had 19 offers on it. The most offers she'd ever
had. That's interesting. Yeah. Now, those 19 people, had they all viewed the property in person previously?
Well, that's the thing. You see, they've all viewed it in person. So that's where I think they're nervous at the moment, because they can carry on the sales progression with deals that are already going. Mm-hmm. And, they're sort of expecting some buyers to try and chip back some money, but nevertheless, they might be able to be done. Quite what happens about showing people around, or what'll happen over the next couple of weeks, I don't know, but I don't think we know at all. I think we just have to reset, think hard, get ourselves properly set up at home, get to look for people who are not used to any of this. Get yourself set up at home, get used to. I mean, I've been basically working at home for 20 years. So, but even I yesterday, over the weekend, I updated quite a bit of my hardware in my office at home, because I've done like Zoom calls with people for years, but suddenly I'm doing Zoom calls with like 10 people. So it's like, I better upgrade the router and better plug my MacBook straight into Ethernet rather than on Wi-Fi. This sort of thing. But I think people get used to it, get to play around with all the new tools, see what happens, talk to people. There's this sort of fallacy, I think, of a lot of people who've never worked remotely that think you never talk to anyone. Well, I talk to people non-stop and talk to all your team non-stop, help each other out, and you learn we'll get familiar with this quite quickly. And then who knows what's going to happen, but at least you can be in as best a position. All you can do is get yourself into as best a position as you can be to deal with whatever comes down our track. What about over there? How's things in Ireland?
Well, obviously we're only a week into this effective kind of shutdown, but of course it's not a shutdown of business. But what's really interesting is that it's testing everything that we've been I suppose everything that we've been talking about over the last number of years about prop tech and using technology. And I'm reminded of that, that famous quote, it's only when the tide goes out that you realise who's been swimming naked. And that's really what we're saying, across estate agencies, but not just estate agencies. This applies to construction companies and property developers, all sorts of businesses, engineering firms. But one of the things we've been saying really for the past 2 years is that we've noticed a widening gap between the businesses that are embracing technology and doing it well, not just in a token sort of a way, actually doing it well and changing processes around it. There's a huge gap between those and the people who haven't. And, it's funny, over the past 12 months, we've been saying, particularly for construction companies and estate agencies, we've been saying that actually, as that gap widens, it's going to get very difficult, not just expensive, but even culture-wise and training-wise, it's going to get very difficult to narrow that gap. And actually, that's where I think we're seeing problems at the moment. So, for example, we saw straight away last week the estate agencies that had actually embraced things like 360 video, virtual reality walkthroughs, all sorts of remote viewing, right down to simple video tours. Those companies that have been embracing it for the past 2 or 3 years, they just hit the ground running. Straight away when a viewing cancelled, they were able to send out a video and circulate online and do all of that. It's very difficult for the firms who haven't been making small steps towards progress over the last number of years to adjust to what's happened in the last 10 days. And that's really the biggest gap, and that's the biggest worry that I see. And in a way, like from our point of view at Property District and through PropTech Ireland, we saw an increase of inquiries last week of 250%. So now look, I'm not in any way taking pleasure out of that. In fact, if anything, I'm now very worried that we don't have the resources to actually get all of the estate agencies now who need it up to speed in terms of virtual reality tours, and even down to floor plan mapping and even teaching about best use of video to do video tours and getting it online, and especially for businesses that don't even have their social media profiles built up. So even if they do get their, even if they can get video tours done, they don't have any way to circulate it. They've nothing except the portals. That has been their only use of technology over the last number of years. So like I said, I'm not taking any pleasure in this at all. In fact, I'm genuinely concerned that we don't have the resources and the facilities to help all the agencies that need help right now. So I'm really hoping that the membership bodies for estate agents, I'm hoping that they will really step up and try resource their members and actually get this technology deployed. And so one of the big things I see at the moment, we're starting to see a little bit of opportunism, and I don't want to see that. That's not the way we want to grow PropTech. We actually need to be really creating collaboration culture right now. So we're happy to share any knowledge we have. And I'm hoping, speaking to you today, that you're going to share knowledge that you have. We'll give that knowledge for free. We want to empower as many people in the industry to become more resilient and to be agile enough to adjust to this change quickly without it jeopardizing their company and the future of the
absolutely.
business.
I mean, rather necessity is the mother of all invention, and needs must. I completely agree. I've said for years that there will come a point when suddenly we find that X company is 10 times better at doing something than the normal, as opposed to just a little. But there has never been a better opportunity to dive in, and there is an awful lot online to help people. That's the great thing about the internet and all that. There's an unbelievable amount of resources online, and so yes,
absolutely. Yeah. Anthony, speaking of resources online, I don't know, was this planned? Was it in the works? Do you just have exceptionally good timing? But you actually just launched an online masterclass.
We have indeed. We've launched. This is myself and a very good friend of mine called Carol Tallon, who lives in New York and is something of a all-round super big brain real estate guru, and I have talked to each other for many years about all this sort of, the impact of technology on real estate. And to be honest, we've been working on doing an online course for probably two or 3 months. It just happened that we were ready to go just as this all blew up. But the point is, online is there is so much to learn and so much that needs to be learned, that the best place to do an awful lot of this is online. And we thought this is a good opportunity to start to be able to scale what Draw and I do a lot of anyway. Draw and I both work with a limited number of corporates, and both of us do a lot of public speaking. But frankly, neither of us scale. I cannot be in two places as one. So I talk to a lot of people, and I reach quite a lot of people in my blog and all that sort of thing. But we thought we should actually combine our skills and offer a deep dive into pretty much everything you need to know about technology if you're in the real estate industry, and about real estate if you're in the prop tech industry. Because this is the big issue, and it's not just in prop tech; it happens in many fields. That you get the technologists who don't have any domain knowledge, and the people with the domain knowledge who don't have any technology knowledge, and they all end up sort of rather wasting money and disappearing down the wrong rabbit holes because they don't really know what they're doing. There's a whole role and a requirement, we believe, for this intermediary role of explaining real estate to technology people and technology to real estate people. So yes, we're hoping to launch it next month and see where we go from there. But it should be extremely interesting.
Well, look, obviously, that we're a fan of your work. Last October, through Property District and PropTech Ireland, we launched our C-suite sessions, the masterclasses for 2020. And in fact, you came over and delivered on two of them back in Ireland. So we hadn't at that time taken the online masterclasses online. We were running them in the RDS, and we were delighted you were able to make it over. You flew over and delivered two, as I recall. One was space as a service, and the other was artificial intelligence use cases for real estate.
It was, yeah.
And actually, one of the things we do in our masterclasses is that we deliberately make them very, very small. So we only have between 12 and 20 people. And the reason for that is because we want an element of not just networking, but actually almost bonding between PropTech startups and, again, those with specialist technology, but maybe not real estate domain knowledge. We want them really to get to know each other, to start building relationships. And we found that the best way to do that was in a very small room where people are forced to essentially talk and engage and chat over coffee. And it's interesting now because we can see that when you're talking about from a scalability point of view, really we need to be taking this a step further and taking it online. So that's why I was so delighted to see the initiative that you were taking with this. And I think there's huge demand for it. In fact, if anything, I would have believed there was demand for it before 2 weeks ago, but now I can see that there's actually a very urgent demand, particularly now we're seeing the cancellation and the postponement of events like MIPIM and Future PropTech and Prop IT in Dubai, which I'm so disappointed. It isn't going. Look, I understand it's a very selfish thing to be disappointed when these big events are going ahead, because obviously we know from a safety point of view that cancelling and postponing is not only the right thing to do, it's the only thing to do, but it doesn't stop you missing the opportunities that you were banking on, really, in terms of connecting with people from in other parts of the world. And so in terms of the masterclass, I presume you're looking to get contributions globally.
Well, we're certainly looking to get contributions in terms of people taking part. And actually, just going back to what you were saying about how the networking opportunities and the sort of bonding. When we were designing this, the principle was that we wanted to do three things. So partly we wanted to provide a corpus of material that people could use, that people could view as and when they wanted to do it. Typical online course thing there's 8 modules. You can do them middle of the night, middle of the day. It doesn't matter when you do them. But we also wanted to do some in-person interaction, real life in real time interaction, but also try and enable the students in commerce to interact and get to know each other. So one of the way we're going to be running this is that we will have each week we will have a certain amount of course material will be put out there, which will consist of videos, some readings, maybe some polls, those sorts of things. And then we intend to have at the end of each week a little interview session, which will be just Draw and I. And Draw and I will be, if you like, in conversation with each other. So, Draw, you were talking this week about et cetera, et cetera. What do you think are the most important things that people should have got from this? And Antony, you were talking about this. How do you see that developing? So there's a little bit of seeing the two of us interact. But then we were also going to have, we haven't decided how long they're going to be yet. They might be an hour, they might be 2 hours, open webinars, as it were. So again, it would be pretty much a ask us anything. So the idea would be, right, this is what we told you we were going to teach you this week. Hopefully this is what you did and this is what you learned. And now let's discuss it. Who has something to say? So we get this combination of trying to build a virtual buddy network, almost, a friends network, like people who have I have a fantastic Twitter feed where I've met so many people all around the world from my Twitter account, and there's lots of people I've never, I've either never met or took years to meet, but we have really great in-depth conversations. So the idea is we believe there's a core, if you like, a core curriculum of things that are applicable globally, regardless. The foundational ideas and frameworks and ways of thinking. And then we think there's going to be layers of specific things to do with different asset classes. So the first course we're doing is going to be dealing with offices, and then we deal with retail and hospitality, et cetera, et cetera. But then, and funny enough, I was just chatting with a friend in Hong Kong this morning about doing a custom module, which would be attitudes to prop tech in Asia. And you could do this anywhere. So it's sort of, when we start this, we're probably going to do it in real time. So we will do it with a course that will start on a particular day, and we will talk at the end of the week for 4 weeks or so. After that, we will start to build up this recorded material, and people will be able to drop in when you like. But there's an interesting thing, I think, in real estate and prop tech. There's a commonality of language and a commonality of problems and a commonality of purpose, and then there's differences to do with different locations and the way people treat different assets. It's interesting. I know that if you look at the way people use offices in different European countries, they all tend to use them in different ways. So the opportunity is to really broaden everyone's mind to the best and most interesting things that are available anywhere, because that is ultimately the point of international conferences and the point of open courses like this, is that you get input from anyone around the world, and you simply can't do that. There's this wonderful quotation that's been around for ages. Bill Joy, who was one of the original founders of Silicon Graphics, which is, you need to be quite an old timer, but Silicon Graphics was a really big fish back in the 80s, early 90s. And Bill Joy used to say, no matter who you are, most of the smartest people work somewhere else. So, which is great, which is a great way of thinking it. We surround ourselves with bright, smart people, as many as we can, but frankly, most of the smart people are somewhere else. And this is
But apart from anything else, when we're talking about an industry that is still emerging, or a sector that's still emerging, then you have to think that actually there are so many elements here where there are no experts as yet. So actually, collecting all the insights from experiences on the ground, not just from different countries, but from different cities within different countries. I think that's hugely important. So I love that you are building in a mechanism to actually capture those insights to be able to incorporate them into future use, because that's where the bank of expertise builds up. We don't have it yet. There has to be an element of research and gathering, and we can only get that from practitioners on the ground. So this
Absolutely.
So I love that concept. Antony, thank you so much for joining us today, particularly in these very surreal times. Before we let you go, you might just remind our listeners how they can access your information so they'll be ready when the masterclass is launched.
Okay, if they go to realinnovationacademy.com, realinnovationacademy.com, it's all there. Or if they go to antonyslumbers.com, or follow me on Twitter at Antony Slumbers. Any of those ways they can get in touch with us, and I'd be delighted to hear from anyone and give as much help as I can, of course, to anyone.
Perfect. And we'll share all of those details through PropTech Ireland at prop-tech.ie. We'll leave it there for now. Our thanks again to Antony Slumbers, Space as a Service expert, friend of the show, and all-round PropTech guru. Antony, stay safe. We need to take a quick break for now. Stay tuned.
Everything's fine on 93.9, your community radio for South Dublin. This is Dublin South FM.
So I'm delighted to be joined on the line by Nicholas Polley, founder and managing director at 3D Design Bureau. Nick, you're very welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks a million, Carol, for having me.
Okay, your team must be very busy at 3D Design Bureau, because obviously as a provider to the planning, construction and property industries, you have a good perspective kind of on the immediate COVID-19 reaction. So let's start with your design and build clients. What kind of activity have you been seeing over the last week, or what kind of reactions are you seeing from the design and build side over the last few days?
Yeah, it's all positive still. I think a lot of sort of work hasn't slowed down in any way, but that's not to say that it won't slow down depending on what comes out of government, and things are changing on a daily basis. So I think people have adjusted to working remotely. We've been working remotely now, say, for over a week. We're lucky in the sense that we had some remote team members anyway, so it didn't come as a daunting task, like it may have for other people. And to be fair, that some companies who are very large, like say architectural practices, who have probably found it challenging to get remote working. But from what I can see right now, it's still full steam ahead. The planning authorities are still accepting planning applications. So on the planning side of stuff, everything is still very much a go. We're very much working at 100% capacity, and the team are doing a great job. In fairness, it's challenging in the sense that you don't get that communication with your team like you would. So in terms of, if anyone in this current climate is thinking of sort of growing or trying to implement sort of strategies, I think that's put on a hiatus right now while they just bunker down and get through the work that's there. But yeah, all positive so far.
Okay, yeah, and look, I think it's interesting because we saw a lot of activity coming out on board Planola and decisions coming out over the past few days. So they're clearly still operating. We know that as you said, the planning applications are being accepted. So let's just move to, say, the visualizations that you guys do. So you're involved in projects. Actually, just for the benefit of our audience, although you've joined us on the show before, Nick, you might just give an overview as to the services that 3D Design Bureau offers.
Yeah, so like we kind of go across four pillars. Like the first pillar is 3D planning solutions. So working on design teams from a very early design planning stage of a project. Then we've got 3D marketing solutions. So everything related to marketing of properties, animations, virtual tours, like off-plans virtual tours. We're currently implementing BIM solutions now, 3D, 4D, and 6D BIM. And then we've got reality capture, which will be what we term, it's a sort of loose term, but it's where we're sort of putting like architecture and commercial photography, and then our Matterport 360 virtual tour. So it's across the four pillars that we deliver our services. And I suppose in terms of the 3D planning solutions, we haven't noticed any impact on that. In the marketing solutions, I think there's probably going to be a bit of a hit there where people are kind of like, okay, discretionary spend, like on the marketing side, is going to be looked at. But I think where we're going to probably see an offset of that is in the reality capture, in particular in the Matterport 360 tours.
Okay, and actually that's definitely an interesting one that I want to move on to next. But before we move off, say the planning side of things, because as you mentioned, the first pillar of your business there is to get involved at very early stages. Have you been, in the last kind of week or 10 days, have you been made aware of any new developments that will be going forward for planning, or at a very early stage, are you starting to see a stall on projects?
No, which is really encouraging right now. I think what's happening is, I did hear rumors that there's potentially emergency legislation coming in this week around the planning side of stuff. And if I was to guess, I would say probably there might be you'll still be able to submit planning applications, but they might be put on ice, kind of like the Christmas period, but it'll allow people still to submit planning applications. But we're still getting project inquiries. We're still getting appointed on projects. Obviously, we're very conscious that we don't, that we're getting appointed, but that to make sure from a cash flow perspective that invoices are paid. And look, we have a very strict policy for the last 5 years in terms of that. But I think it's very important for consultants out there to be mindful of that right now. Because the last thing you want is to run into doing a load of work and then cash flow being a problem. But from an appointment point of view, no, we're still getting appointed on new projects. Up to even yesterday, there's a large project inquiry came in yesterday evening for an SHD application that we've been asked to work on, from like technical verified views and CGIs and potentially daylight analysis. So like things are still moving, you know. It's anybody's guess as to how it will go, but for now we're full steam ahead, and there isn't any slowdown on the other side.
Well, look, that's encouraging to hear, particularly in light of the construction sector coming under such controversy for keeping construction sites open. And I'm very conscious that we're recording this interview a couple of hours before it will go out live on radio. So I'm very aware that by 6 o'clock this evening on Tuesday, what we say now could be out of date, because we know that the construction sector has been coming under pressure. We know that there have been images circulating of crowded canteens, and it's a sector
we have to be careful of that, though, Carol, as well. Sorry for cutting across you, but I think we have to be careful. Like every company out there, like the construction companies, are doing their level best to make sure that protocols are being implemented. I think the general public, as much as people are giving out about people out and about, I think for 75-80% of people are adhering to social distancing in the general public and stuff. I think the government are doing, in my opinion, are doing a very good job. They're phasing in stuff, and they're not just doing the nuclear option on everything. So I think they're listening to expert advice, and I think that's very encouraging. On the construction sites, I do believe that the construction companies, the developers, the major players, and anyone that's on site are doing their level best to ensure that the right protocols are in place. They don't want shutdown. Like, that's going to just be a nightmare for them, for the clients, for everyone involved. So of course they're going to do their level best. And stuff you're going to see on social media, I think we have to be careful that, you know what I mean, some of it I'm sure might be true, some of it
won't be verified.
So you have to be careful.
Yeah,
exactly. And so we have to be careful on that, I think.
Yeah, and look, I absolutely agree with you. I absolutely agree with you on that. And in fact, if anything, I think over the last week we've seen really positive images. And in fact, as recently as yesterday and today, Walls posted actually images of what social distancing on building sites looked like, which I felt was really helpful, because the Construction Industry Federation has given great guidance, and we know that all of this is done in compliance with the HSE guidelines. But I thought it was really interesting to see contractors showing us, some of the best in class contractors, from the larger ones like Walls to maybe the mid-size, heading towards larger like Townmore, actually showing us what this looks like on site, and it was very good. It was very descriptive, so we know that best practices have been put in place. So I agree with you. From my point of view, I think it's very important that construction sites, where possible, are kept open, particularly those dealing with vital services. And I think that maybe there's a confusion around what vital services are being delivered by the construction sector, because I think people don't necessarily associate it with things like water and sewage and vital infrastructure that needs to be delivered and maintained. So there's definitely a misunderstanding there. So I think any news that comes out this afternoon, it will be interesting to see how this will be approached from I suppose from a risk assessment point of view. So will the risk be seen to outweigh the critical delivery? We just don't know yet.
And I don't think, and that's the crucial thing. Like, everyone's doing what they can. I'm sure if they're not, they should be, because it's vital for the health and well-being of workers. That's really, really important. Like, that's the first and foremost important thing. But I think a lot of this might be outside our control. I think it's going to come from government level for all businesses, as to what will happen. And I think we just have to roll with it. We just don't want to be in a situation like other countries. We definitely don't want that. And that's the most important thing, because the fallout of that, I think, on the far side is going to be a lot worse than what if we do implement more stringent measures.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think one thing that most people would be in agreement with is that the current government are actually doing a very good job, and that measures have been taken in a timely fashion. They've been communicated well. There has been a good balance of safety precautions being put in place while continuing to keep business going. And that's vital as well. So, it's certainly, I think the Irish government have actually shown exceptional leadership and foresight in how they've behaved here. And actually what you're telling me, Nick, is really positive from the planning and even on the construction side. So let's move to one of the other areas of your business, because this is where we're seeing we're probably seeing the most panic or chaos at the moment. So from say, for example, moving on to the offering that you have for estate agents using virtual reality tours and property viewings, last week, by last Monday, we saw that there was an immediate impact on estate and letting agents. And I'm not sure that the capability was there to be able to hit the ground running. From our point of view, through PropTech Ireland, we saw an increase of about 250% in terms of inquiries in, and they weren't all for virtual viewing. Some of them were for online bidding. Some of them were how to access, cloud computing, how to access accounts through the cloud. So basically, all elements of PropTech that maybe estate and letting agents were vaguely aware of and probably agreed that they were important, but perhaps didn't prioritise the implementation of it. Now we're seeing that actually those businesses are genuinely in trouble trying to keep properties available for viewings. So you mentioned that you are actually dealing with Matterport virtual reality tours at the moment. What are you doing for estate and letting agents?
Yeah, pretty much what we've been doing all along. Like, we've been doing it for a couple of years. It's just one element of the business under the sort of reality capture solutions. But it's really straightforward for agents. It's a very valuable tool, even outside of the current crisis we're in. But it's a really, really valuable tool because it's 24/7 access to houses that are on the market, and it's a really straightforward thing to do in terms of going in with the technology, scanning the property and delivering within about 48 hours, tops 24 to 48 hours, getting a full virtual tour of that property. And it's an immersive tour. You can see it in, there's different functionalities of the tour, from dollhouse view, so seeing the entire layout sort of as a bird's eye view, then to dropping down within the space. But what's really, really key on these tours, and I suppose what I feel that not just agents, anyone who, even hotels and offices that we do as well, they don't take advantage enough of the what we call the tags that are within the tour. And they're these little circles that you can click on, and it delivers information, whether that be text, photos, or even video. So if you've got videos on YouTube, you can actually embed them within the tours, and that's really valuable from a virtual viewing point of view, where you might do a short video on your iPhone, upload it to your YouTube channel, and then embed it in the tour to allow agents to sell off the space when someone's actually in the space, and not just. I think there's a little bit of confusion out there about, a lot of people are throwing out terminology of virtual tours. Virtual tours, what I deem them to be, are the Matterport 360 virtual tours. Other people are calling virtual tours where they've gone in, they've done a video, just a handheld video walking through the house. They put that up online, and then someone rings the agent and they talk through the video. That's not really practical, in my opinion. The videos are great, but then trying to organize a time to speak to someone who might be working remotely with kids at home and all the other stress that's going on, having 24/7 a virtual tour there with embedded videos to help, say, sell certain areas of the house. So if there's a converted attic space, for example, having a video in there to explain what's, the space is about, that's invaluable, and to have it for all your properties is really, really a valuable tool in the estate agency world at the moment.
Okay, but taking things, and that I agree with you. I'm a huge proponent of PropTech for estate and letting and managing agents. But say, taking the situation where we are now, excuse me, where are we in terms of capacity? Because one of the things, I reached out to you earlier this week or yesterday, because we are already seeing that people providing these services are already running into capacity issues. So say for estate and letting agents who haven't engaged with this type of technology before, are they going to be able to get services delivered over the next week or two?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I can't speak for any other providers, and I know there are a couple of people out there that would have their business solely around this, and this is a very good time for them in the sense that there's a lot of business there to be had, but then they struggle.
These are generally startups or people who are doing it 1 or 2 person operations. So in fact, we would have an ongoing flow of business and referrals to startups and to technology providers like that. And what we're seeing in the last week is that they're at capacity. They can't do much more for the next number of weeks. So this is why I want to see, are there solutions that estate and letting agents who don't already have relationships with providers, is there a way that they can actually hit the ground running over the next week?
Yeah, well, you know what I mean? In terms of our capacity, yeah, we're fine. We're rolling it out. In terms of not being able to reach someone for a few weeks, that's a serious order book, even for 1 or 2 people. I think what's happening though, just be careful. If you're on the road 24/7 doing this and you have no backroom support team running your business, that's probably where a lot of people might be running into difficulty, because you still have to get paid for this to run the business, and they realize that they still got to run their business in the background. So that sort of stuff has to continue, which is a challenge in itself, But for example, if we were contacted, we were talking to an estate agent yesterday. I was talking to him, and I think he's got a book of a number of properties he wants done. But once he sends them through, we'll probably get, depending on how many they are, we'll get through them no problem. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's, you'd want to be, I would imagine you want to be hit with 100, 200 properties in one go to start running into problems, but I don't see that happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I really don't. So
okay,
I can't. In fairness, I can't speak for the other people and how their businesses are set up, but I'd imagine running the business is a challenge as well in the current climate.
Yeah, of course. And Nick, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I want to make this helpful for, again, estate and letting agents who haven't engaged with this type of technology before. Can you just give a quick overview of the different types of remote viewing services available or technologies available, and an idea of price point, just so agents know what their options are?
Yeah, so it's very straightforward from an agent's point of view. We base our tours off say 1-bedroom apartment, 2-bedroom apartment, 2, 3, and 4-bedroom houses, or 5-bedroom houses, and they range in cost. I don't know off the top of my head, but I think like a 1-bedroom apartment, I think is 235 quid plus maybe travel expenses if we have to go outside of Dublin, up to say I think a 5-bedroom house or 4-bedroom house is like, I think about €450 or something like that. And then if it goes beyond that, then it gets more expensive. I suppose the challenge for the estate agents here, Carol, is going to be who foots the bill.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is it them or is it the client? Like if you're talking about, say, a 2-bed apartment, you know, the idea of virtual viewing is fantastic, but it comes at a cost. And if the estate agent's tight on their fees, they're going to be probably reluctant to take it out of their fees, you know. So
well, all estate agents in Ireland are tight on their fees. In fact, it's one of the things that is really broken in our estate agency sector. And I say that having not been an estate agent ever, but quite frankly, we've allowed our fees to get too low, to the point where it is difficult for estate agents to be able to deliver the quality of service that people want and expect, and to still be well rewarded for it. You know, when we compare ourselves to other jurisdictions, the fees in Ireland are just too low for the service that's expected. And this unfortunately is going to put pressure on it. Whereas, you know, I think even kind of a couple of months ago, or even like 2 and 3 years ago, when we were talking about implementing solutions like this, I know a number of firms who offered it as an optional extra to the vendors. But I also know others who absorbed the cost under the total marketing contribution. And so they were essentially footing some of the bill for this. And I don't know how sustainable that's going to be for a whole portfolio of properties. So I suppose
it means employing someone full time in an agency to do this, right? If you're rolling it out on a constant basis for some of the larger players, and I think you're dead right. I know some players who have implemented themselves, and others who are like that. They can't absorb it because it's too much of a high percentage on their bottom line. But ultimately, it does make a massive difference to the sale of a house, certainly even more so now because of what we're in, you know. But yeah, you're right, like the fees are low, but again, we've tailored our sort of, let's call it our rate card, to try and tie in with that as best as possible. Like, you know, we're sort of at the bare bones. So like in terms of the deliverable that we coming out of 3D Design Bureau, Matterport tours will be what, you know, we'd class as a low ticket item in terms of the rest of the service we provide, but we think it's an important service in terms of the brand and what we produce, and it ties in very well, and it's why we continue to do it. But we keep it very lean, like, you know, there wouldn't be a huge profit in it. So I suppose from a estate agent point of view, if they come to us and say, look, it's way too expensive, it's like, well, sorry,
there's
guys,
nothing you can do.
It's not viable. Yeah. It's not viable. If we then cut the complete bottom out of it, then there's no point in us delivering it, you know, at the same time. So yeah, it's a really tricky one. It's a tricky scenario everyone's in at the moment, you know what I mean? But I think looking to tech and looking at innovative ways, if there's one thing, this is two things I learned from the last recession, and we went through 6 years of it last time round. 1, act quickly. 2, innovate. And 3, just don't give up. You know, just never ring the bell. Like, you know, it's the three major lessons, but you have to act quickly. You can't be an oil tanker in the sea waiting to stop or turn. You have to be the speedboat trying to turn. And it might not be the right turn, but if you do it quickly, then you'll know it's not the right turn quickly enough, and you can then set a new course. That can't be underestimated in terms of making sure you're looking to next week, not like 6 months down the road, you know what I mean? Making decisions quickly. Yeah. And if they're the wrong decision, so be it. Then make another decision that could be the right decision. But sitting around waiting for the magic bullet, like, you know, the answers are not there yet, you know what I mean? So you're going to have to figure them out. We're all going to have to figure them out ourselves.
Yeah, look, I couldn't agree more. And in fact, I think that final point you have to make there is a really important one. It's the importance of agility and business organizations' ability to be agile. And what we saw 12, 13 years ago when the crash hit, what we saw is that property businesses just didn't have that resilience. They didn't have the agility to be able to respond. Whereas I think that's very different today, and not just because a lot of our firms are newly established over the past 7 to 10 years, but actually the people who survived learned those lessons, as you rightly point out. So I think agility is the main thing. And over the last 2 years, we've been trialling this program to establish best practice across estate and letting agents called the Agile Agent Program. And in year one, we only work with 12 different estate agencies per year. And in year one, only 9 of the 12 actually were able to come through the program. They just quite simply weren't able to keep pace with the innovation that was needed and this constant change. But for year 2, we're still on track with 12 out of the 12. So I do think that agility is an important part of the puzzle, but it's one that estate and letting agents are getting better at. Nick, before I let you go, there's one final thing, and I don't know if you'll have a perspective on this, but I'm interested to find out. In terms of the virtual reality tours and remote viewings and all other type of solutions, do you think the culture amongst particularly home buyers and potential home buyers, not, we know it's changing in investors, but for home buyers, do you think they're going to be able to buy a property just based on a remote viewing and actually go through with the process? Has the culture changed enough for that to happen?
No.
That's my fear.
I think, I think it's an amazing further step to getting people to go and view the right properties, to cut down that I suppose that let's go and view 10 properties. I think if you can give people the opportunity to distill that down to 1 or 2 properties, I think then you get a much better hit rate on the sales side for agents. So do I think they're going to actually purchase a property through viewing it solely through a virtual viewing? No, I don't. Do I think it's going to be a massive step towards them picking the right property and not wasting an agent's time on 8 other properties? Yes, I do think that's going to be. So ultimately it'll lead to better sales, probably faster sales, but it won't lead to, in my opinion, sales online. No.
No, look, unfortunately, I think you're right. Listen, we'll leave it there, even though I know there's so much more we could cover. That was Nicholas Polley, founder and managing director of 3D Design Bureau. Nick, thank you so much for being with us today. That's it from us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And I was going to say in studio, but from my spare room, that's it from us today. Thank you for listening into Property Matters on Dublin South FM, the show where property matters. Get in touch with the show by emailing hello@ipropertyradio.com or on Twitter @ipropertyradio. Also, my thanks to Peter Rice on sound, who has a very difficult job this week on Dublin South FM.
I'll light the fire. You place the flowers in the vase that you bought today. Staring at the fire for hours and hours while I listen to you play your love songs all night long. For me, only for me. Come to me now and rest your head for just 5 minutes. Everything is done. Such a cozy room. The windows are illuminated by the evening sunshine through them. Fiery gems for you, only for you. Our house is a very, very, very fine house with 2 cats in the yard. Life used to be so hard. Now everything is easy 'cause of you. And la 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 while you place the flowers in the vase that you bought today.
This is Dublin South FM.
His Sunday best. Mother's tired, she needs a rest. The kids are playing up downstairs. Sister's saying in her sleep, brother's got a date to keep, he can't hang around. Our house in the middle of our street. Our house in the middle of our house, it has a crowd. There's always something happening and it's usually quite loud. Our mum, she's so house proud. Nothing ever slows her down and a mess is not allowed. Our house in the middle of our street. Our house in the middle of our house in the middle of our street. Someone tells you that you've got to move in the middle of our. Father gets up late for work. Mother has to iron his shirt. Then she sends the kids to school, sees them off with a small kiss. She's the one they're going to miss in lots of ways. And everything was true when we would have such a very good time, such a fine time, such a happy time. And I remember how we'd play, simply waste the day away. Then we'd say nothing would come between us, two dreamers. Father wears his Sunday best. Mother's tired, she needs a rest. The kids are playing up downstairs. Sister's saying in her sleep, brother's got a date to keep, he can't hang around. Our house in the middle of our street. Our house in the middle of our street. Our house in the middle of our street. Our house in the middle of our house was our castle and our king. Our house in the middle of our street. Our house, that was where we used to sleep. Our house. In the middle of our street. Our house in the middle of our. I remember when I came and everything was true when we would have such a very good time, such a fine time, such a happy time. And I remember how we'd play, simply waste the day away. Then we'd say nothing would come between us, two dreamers. Father wears his Sunday best. Mother's tired, she needs a rest. The kids are playing up downstairs. Sister's saying in her sleep, brother's got a date to keep, he can't hang around.